All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies course, I've been creating a series of video presentations that are based on the Mozilla Developer Network Learn Web Development series. I'm in the section on server-side programming, and we're in Express Node.js. We're going through this local library tutorial, and I'm in part 5 of 7, and in part 5 they go through all the different pages that we're going to have to add code for. I've done the asynchronous flow control using async, and now it's time for the template primer. As they say here, a template is a text file defining the structure or layout of an output file, with placeholders used to represent where data will be inserted when the template is rendered. In Express, templates are always referred to as views. Please don't let this throw you, because we will be going through examples of this in here and throughout the class. There are different templating engines. I've used EJS and I've used Handlebars, and in here they're going to use Pug, as it says, formerly known as Jade. It says this is the most popular Node template language and describes itself as clean, whitespace sensitive syntax for writing HTML. All right, different templating language use different approaches for defining layout and making placeholders for data. Some use HTML to define the layout, while others use different markup formats that can be translated into HTML, and that's what Pug does. It uses a representation of HTML where the first word in any line usually represents an HTML element, and then notice indentation on subsequent lines is used to represent nesting. So the indentation, all right, using tab is going to be important. The result is a page definition that translates directly to HTML but is more concise and arguably easier to read. The downside of Pug, it mentions right there, is that it is sensitive to indentation and white space. If you add an extra space in the wrong place, you might get an unhelpful error code. Once you have your templates in place, they're typically easy to read and maintain. All right, the local library was configured to use Pug earlier. All right, we should see Pug in there as a dependency. I don't think I still have that open, but I do. And there's Pug right there. In addition, if I go back to the app.js file, a long time ago, we set up our view engine and we said that we're going to be using Pug. If you look in the views directory, you will see the .pug files, and that's error and index, and we added the layout one previously, so those should all be in there. And that's in views, so it was the wrong place. There we go. So there's error.pug, index.pug, and layout.pug. Okay. The example template below shows off many of Pug's most useful features. The first thing to notice is that the file maps the structure of a typical HTML file. This looks pretty familiar. We don't have the angle brackets, but other than that, this looks pretty doggone familiar. All right, with the first word in almost every line being an HTML element and indentation used to indicate nested elements. So, for example, the body element is inside of the HTML element, and paragraph elements are inside of the body element. Non-nested elements are on separate lines. Okay. All right, element attributes are defined in parentheses, and they're associated after their associated element. Inside of these parentheses, the attributes are defined in comma or white space separated lists, as shown here. The values of all attributes are escaped using characters like another angle bracket, all right, are converted to their HTML equivalents, so they're HTML entities, okay, to prevent from JavaScript injection or cross-site scripting attacks, which we talked about much earlier. If a tag is followed by the equal sign, the following text is treated as a JavaScript expression. So, for example, in this line right here, the content of the h1 tag will be the variable title. In the second line here, the paragraph content is a string that's concatenated with the title variable. In both cases, the default behavior is to escape the line. If there is no equal sign after the tag, then the content is treated as plain text. Within the plain text, you can insert escaped or unescaped data using this syntax. I show some examples here. You can also add raw HTML within the plain text. You will almost always want to escape data from users, as data cannot be trusted. We've talked about this before. You can also use the pipe character at the beginning of a line to indicate plain text, as shown right here. Pug allows you to perform conditional operations using if, else, else if, and unless. You can perform looping using each in or while syntax. In the code fragment below, they're looping through an array to display a list of variables. Note the use of the li equal to evaluate val in the variable below. The value you iterate across can be passed into the template as a variable. Also notice all these have their spaces in there, and I believe if this is anything like EJS and handlebars, it's really easy to screw things up with spacing and the like. So the syntax also supports comments that can be rendered in the output or not as you choose. Mixins to create reusable blocks of code, case statements, and other features. So if you click here, if we open this up, we will go to the Pug documentation. And I think I brought that up in an earlier lecture. Across a site, it is usual for all pages to have a common structure, including standard HTML markup for header, footer, navigation. So again, you're making a template so that you're able to drop it into each page. This has two really big advantages. Number one is it provides some normalcy, and each page has got the same kind of look and feel. All right, and second, all right, you've already done part of your work, for lack of better words. Rather than forcing users to duplicate a boilerplate on each page, Pug allows you to declare a base template and then extend it as necessary. For example, the base layout created in the skeleton project looks like this. The block tag, as mentioned right there, is used to mark up sections of content that may be replaced in a derived template. The default index.pug used in the skeleton project shows how to override. All right, so they got their block content, and they're overriding the block content. All right, that was quick. So if we return here, we have now gone through asynchronous flow control using async in the template primer. So next will be the local library base template, and I'll be back with that shortly.